Welcome to the Catchpoint News Catch-Up. Now, if you've worked in tech for more than 15 minutes, you know the news moves faster than a well-tuned website loading LCP. This series will help you catch up with the headlines that matter, as well as provide both context and perspective, because, like your network, here at Catchpoint, we are highly opinionated. And joining me today on this journey through the news of the day is the other member of the Catchpoint News Perfect Attendance Club, Technical Product Marketing Manager, Payal Chakraborty. Welcome back.
Thank you, Leon. Thank you for the warm welcome.
No problem. Also covering for this week for Sergi, last week he was covering for Kelly, is the man who is quickly becoming a regular on this show, our leader of solutions engineering, Brandon DeLap.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for allowing me back on today.
No problem. You haven't jumped the shark yet. We will see how it goes, though. And finally, returning after a week of graduation madness for two kids, not just one, but two kids, is Senior Director of Product Management, Kelly Avina. Welcome back.
Thank you. Looking forward to this fun break in my day.
Right? This is the thing that resembles work but isn't really work for us. So awesome. All right. Before we dive into the news, I do want to just say a happy 4th of July for those who observe it. A reminder, please do not ever try to set off fireworks connected to your body, not off your head or anything like that. We expect all of you who is watching this episode to come back on Monday with all of your fingers and toes. All the ones that you have today, you should still have on Monday. So just, but again, happy 4th for those who are partaking. We're going to jump straight into the news here. And I'm going to lead things off. There we go. Microsoft study finds infinite workday is hurting productivity. I have thoughts about this. However, what the summary of the article is, and this was reported in techspot.com, Microsoft's Work Trend New Index Special Report, which was released in June of 2025, used Office 365 usage data to watch when and how people were working. And what it found was that many people, the article says most, but we'll just say many, are trapped, apt word, in a workday that starts around 6 o'clock in the morning, continues beyond 8 at night, and does not stop on the weekends either. So a few things jumped out at me from this article. First of all, the fact that they used Office 365 usage data was very interesting. It seemed like a novel approach to figure out what people are doing. It wasn't a survey. It wasn't asking. It was doing that. And basically, we, the workers, are now the objects of an observability system on us. We are the end nodes or agents, which I don't know how I feel about that just yet. And a quote jumped out at me: the most productive hours of the day between 9 and 11 and 1 and 3. So 9 and 11 in the morning and 1 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon are when half of all meetings are held, wasting people's natural midday performance spike. 11 o'clock in the morning is also when peak message activity is reached, as real-time messages, scheduled meetings, and constant application switching converge. So that I thought was a critical insight there. Now, I will be the first to tell you that I have a personal work-life balance issue. I'll also tell you that if it wasn't for being an Orthodox Jew, where I'm required to completely go offline for 24 hours a week, I'd probably have worked myself into a heart attack by now. So I recognize this overwork mentality, this overwork thing is very real. I've also worked remotely for over a decade, maybe 12 years now, and I could not go back. And frequently I'm reminded of a very old IBM advertisement that said working a 10-hour day isn't so bad when you can pick which 10 hours it is, which is true, right? When you can time slice and you can walk away and you're not stuck in an office, which I for myself call the interruption machine, it makes a big difference on whether you are overworked or simply managing your life and work at the same time. But you do fall into the trap of working a lot more. So the other part of the article, obviously I have to mention this. Microsoft said that AI offers a way out of this endless workday, although it could also accelerate the current situation. And it might help, or it might kill us all. Who knows? Isn't that great? And the last piece I'll bring up is a related article Bernie Sanders says that if AI is making people so much more productive, we should standardize a 4-hour work week. So I just add that as a little tagline. But again, I think this is very interesting insight, both from the way they collected the data and also from the results. But I'm curious what everyone else is thinking about it.
See, so personally, I took two things away from that article. One, it was a plug for Copilot, right? Like, hey, your day's not productive. We can see that with your Microsoft 360 data. Use Copilot to help. And then my second takeaway, I am a study curmudgeon, where if you are listing that you did a study with X data, but you have all of these holes with and are blind to all of this other stuff, then the study means nothing to me. And that's how I felt with this. Right? The
Data is
study
Kelly's love language.
the studies, I mean, the article says, we see that people are checking their email at 6 a.m. They make assumptions as to why and what is going on, but there's no insight to, because they didn't do a survey of the people, right? So they are solely going off of what they see. And I don't think that's enough to make this this connection to, you are working from 6 a.m. You're checking your email at 6 a.m. and then you're checking your email again at 10 p.m. So that means you have an infinite workday and you're not productive. That there's not enough data to make that correlation.
I like the idea of obviously letting AI agents figure out the meeting scheduling, right? I like the idea. It seems like you've got the good idea of when we're productive, then go ahead and schedule our meetings for us. But jokes aside, I like those hours, and they seem like a great window to essentially block off for non-meeting tasks. Unfortunately, I look at my calendar, and those time windows are the time windows that are blocked off currently. So definitely something that I'll look into and see if it helps me become a little more proactive with those non-meeting tasks. Obviously, in my role, a lot of my tasks involve meetings, so it's kind of hard to work around that. But we did last week. Actually, the team got together in an office there in Boston, and I did notice a difference though from working from home. Constantly just being behind my desk compared to being in an open room with other folks, not necessarily behind a computer, being more open, more collaborative. So I still think those in-person collaborative sessions are important to break up these, constant days of just, potentially being behind your computer. Or maybe I just need to take more breaks, right? Log off, go outside, see the sun.
Yeah, touch grass.
Exactly.
So I'm going to jump in here before I give Payal a second, but I think I have said for a long time, since the pandemic, since the before times, it's not about you should be remote or you should be in the office or whatever. I think that the most effective policy is for a company to say, we trust our staff to be where they need to be to get the best work done. And if that means in work share space, collaborating, or at home because they need the flow time, or together for a couple of weeks because there's a high level project or whatever it is, we trust our staff to make sure they are where they need to be. And we trust our management to know that the tasks that are important to the company are getting done in the best way possible. That is for me, the only remote work policy that is workable. Anything else is going to harm some folks and possibly help some folks, but there is no one modality fits all circumstances or situations. So, but I like your idea of blocking off meetings. I'm a big fan of no meeting Mondays, or at least no meeting Monday mornings if you can manage it. But everyone has to balance their own thing. All right, Payal, what do you got?
All right. So yes, like you said, no meeting Monday mornings. I would say no meeting the entire Friday.
That's fine.
Yeah,
If you can manage again,
yeah,
Brandon's role sort of requires meetings, but I think that yeah, if you can manage it, the fewer meetings, the better,
yeah, yes.
right?
So yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh, so I think you've got the next news item, so let's hear it.
All right, so this news article is about a cyber news investigation that uncovered a staggering cache. So what it says is that there are 30 data sets containing roughly around 16 billion login credentials. Not one or two, 16. Primarily, they are harvested via an infostellar malware. Although no single tech giant was breached directly, credentials from services like Apple, Google, Facebook, Telegram, GitHub, and I would say government portals too were present, which often included their username, password, login URLs. So, with this overlapping and possibly old data, the breach remains the largest of all its kinds. Security experts urge everyone to immediately reset the passwords, enable MFA, the multi-factor authentication, switch to passkeys, use password managers, and monitor accounts with tools like Have I Been Bond with the 16 billion credential leak, which is now not a new data breach. That's what I have for today.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so first of all, props to Troy Hunt, who has been doing God's own work on Have I Been Pwned for years. I also want to point out to everyone who's watching that you can sign up you can check an email address or a website or whatever, but you can also sign up for proactive email. So you can find out whenever an email account has been breached or is on a breach list. I think also we need to highlight, two-FA, 2FA, 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 two-factor authentication, and not SMSing your phone. That is not secure either. But two-factor authentication is the way, as well as a password manager. Do not have the same password on every single or even two or more accounts. Use a password manager to have long, unintelligible passwords and keep track of them and use the app to put the password. I mean, I won't say this is basic blocking and tackling these days, but it's becoming basic blocking and tackling. It's becoming pretty, normal behavior for things. And it's just a matter of keeping yourself safe. So that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I think I read about a data breach, I don't know, once a week anymore. And I mean, I have an iPhone, and for every app that has a, user ID and password, it tells me if it's been compromised. And at some point, I think every single one of my passwords says it's been compromised and I have to change it.
Yeah, I definitely I resonate with that, Kelly. I see that when I go into the password app, right? It's like again.
Yeah, exactly.
I changed all my passwords again after this one, but definitely was probably too late. So just staying proactive is key. Going in when you're changing those passwords, update your notifications, make sure any new ones that they may have related to privacy and security, enable those as well. And at this point, that's probably the only way to get ahead of these issues is staying proactive. So I think that's definitely something to keep on doing. And for all of those that are watching this and listening and may not know what a password manager is, definitely install one and start using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
agreed.
We'll have some links to things in the description below. I also want to point out there was one article that said this is not actually a new breach. So for those who didn't catch this in the news initially, just be clear, this is not, they didn't breach 16 billion sites today or this week. This is a collection of breach information. It is the largest single cache of breach information, but these are in many cases old breaches that have gone out there. So just to be clear, this was not necessarily a new hack. This was just a new discovery of a tranche of past usernames and passwords and account information from the past. Brandon, you are actually doing our next news thing. So what do you got for us?
Excellent. Yes. So, I didn't want Leon to be the only one to bring up AI. So I definitely wanted to bring up another one here. And And not to be the LA guy, but another Hollywood and Catchpoint news correlation here. But guess what movie was on this week? Just so happened after reading
That
this
you were
article.
watching? For
Yeah,
me, it was K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't know what you were watching.
The Matrix. It was The Matrix.
Ah,
So, some correlation there with this article. But so ChatGPT may be eroding critical thinking skills, according to a new MIT study. So this highlight article, MIT did a study to see the effect that what AI could have on critical thinking abilities. Essentially, what it was three groups of users. The first group was able to use ChatGPT to do a task. The second was limited to just Google search, and the third was only able to use their old noggin. So, like back in the day, where you had to, get into a classroom or a big gym and sit behind a desk and just start writing. Right? They just give you a topic and you just got to write. Well, the results pretty obvious, right? But the lowest brain activity across the board were the ChatGPT users. So, like I said, pretty obvious, but studies are fun. I like data. And I may not look into them as much as Kelly, but I definitely love data and studies. And they actually wrapped it up with a final round of the study. And I think this is probably the most important thing about the study. Actually, is they allowed the brain only group to use ChatGPT this time to redo that task. But the previous group that was allowed to use ChatGPT they had no tool to use. And as it turns out, the first group that now was able to use ChatGPT performed extremely well. So, it's all about just knowing when and how to use AI, and the tie to the younger generation here. Close to me, having a toddler, it really makes me think about the impact that it will have on the younger generation in the 10, 20, 25, 30 years to come here. And there was some comment there about policies playing a huge part, right? And that's why she kind of released this study early. They want to get the word out there and make sure that there's no, policy that's put in place here too quickly that may have a negative impact on the younger generation. So, if we don't do something quickly here, I think we may see the internet, which actually expanded knowledge globally, right? I think we may see it start to actually diminish it, unfortunately. So, great article. It's on time.com. So if you do have a second to give it a read, definitely recommend.
awesome. All right. What thoughts do people have? Because everyone knows what I'm thinking.
So yeah, so sorry. I was thinking, um, if that says that people are thinking less and using AI to do their work, does it also mean at the same time that we're losing a part of the innovative ideas that come into our head? Like, let's say if you're planning an ad commercial and you think a little out of the box and you think of two, three elements, and then when you run it down, ChatGPT or any other AI tool for that instance, does it limit the ideas there, or does it really help you? The question there is that does it really help you elevate your ideas, or is it not helping you elevate the idea and making it very standardized and boring, is what I'm trying to understand.
Okay, so I'll start off by saying I love AI. I love talking about it, and I am going to be picking. I'm going to be choosy about the articles I pick because I don't want Leon Curmudgeon to kick me out of the club because I'm doing too many AI things.
No, that's fine. It's all good. We need to have both sides of the conversation.
Okay, so again, a study that I don't think, or at least in the article, doesn't tell us all of the information. We don't know the group that that was given ChatGPT only, what information and knowledge they already had about the topic that they were told to use. We don't know if they were allowed to review and alter the outcome of ChatGPT's essay at all. So like the I think in there it said the professors said that the essays using ChatGPT were soulless. And I mean, yes, if you didn't get the opportunity to fact check it or to put your own thoughts into that essay and just use it as a baseline, then yes, that would be true. Regardless of all of the data that's used for the study, I disagree with the study. I don't think that it is taking away critical thinking. I think that I think that for some people, yeah, they might rely on ChatGPT solely, and that's unfortunate for them. But for the majority of people, I think if you know the topic that you are using ChatGPT for, and you're fact checking it and making sure that it's not hallucinating, and you are putting your own thoughts into that final version, it's going to better your work life, your student life, right, in college, but it is going to set you up for what you are going to be doing in the future in work. And I will say, like, we should be using it to do those stupid mundane tasks, and so that we can use our brains for those harder, more complex things.
Right. Okay, so first I'm going to formally welcome Brandon into the AI Curmudgeon Club. Just going to put that one out there. There's never a problem with talking about AI. It's obviously, as IT practitioners, it is an ever-present element of our life. So we wrestle with it to make sure, like any technology that's being used appropriately. As far as the article goes, on the one hand, we know that when you don't use skills, physical skills, mental skills, whatever they are, they atrophy, right? We start to lose our facility with them, whatever that is. On the other hand, calculators are a thing, and we use them, and we no longer clutch our pearls and call for our fainting couch when people use a calculator to do some calculations. On the other hand, we know that people, generally speaking, are not as facile with numbers as they were back in the, let's say, 40s and 50s when calculators weren't a thing. Generally, broadly speaking, they were still, that's a bell curve. Some people were never good at math and weren't going to be good at math. And some people were super good at it, and the math, and it wouldn't matter if they had a calculator or not, they were still super good. And there's most of us in the middle. And I think that what this article really is underscoring, Kelly, your point is good. We don't know what the parameters of the study are that for people who stop using a skill, it's going to atrophy. I know that the study said that when the ChatGPT people had to not use ChatGPT, that they struggled, but I wonder if that work had gone on for more than a single task, if it had gone on for a week or 2 weeks, if they would have come back up to par. Because again, when you use a skill, it redevelops. We know that from languages. You speak one language, you stop speaking it, you come back to it a few years later. Yes, you're rusty, but it does come back, things like that. I think this underscores the difference between using something as a tool and over relying on something, leaning on it so heavily that you lose your ability to do other things. And that's, as much as we joke about me being an AI curmudgeon, it's not that I hate AI. I hate the way a lot of people are using AI. I hate the fact that it is being shoehorned into everything from my toaster to my compute, to my email. I don't need it there. I don't want it there. And I right now don't have a way of turning it off. And that's what offends me most about it. But as a tool, I think, like all technology, it's got some great uses. And with that, I will pass it back to the non-AI curmudgeon. I'm going to pass this over to Kelly. What's the last news article of the day?
All right, so I actually have two articles that are semi-related. So one is from Tech Explorer, and it is about a cyber attack on a grocery supplier, and how this has kind of revealed that fragility in the food supply chain. And I don't know. I found this article really interesting. So they were the United Natural Foods, which generates $31 billion in ARR, and is the largest publicly traded wholesale distributor of natural, organic, and specialty foods in the US and Canada, was subject to a cyber attack, likely ransomware, although the UNFI, right, United Natural Foods Incorporated, did not actually confirm that it was ransomware. So they supply around 30,000 stores nationwide, and due to this cyber attack, it forced them to shut down their system, which then it led to bare shelves in the grocery stores. I mean, we all saw bare shelves in, with COVID, and this did the same thing, right? You ended up with grocery stores that couldn't get their orders fulfilled. This emphasizes the need for better preparedness and investment in cybersecurity across the supply chain. And then the second article, it's actually a blog, a Cloudflare blog. And this is about a time in May, 2 months, 2 months ago, July 1st, right? In May, Cloudflare successfully blocked the largest DDoS attack ever recorded. The attack targeted a hosting provider using Cloudflare's Magic Transit service. It was a multi-vector attack with 99.996% of the traffic being UDP floods. So to me, these articles, I mean, obviously they're both about attacks on an application. They highlight the growing threat of cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. One is showing how a successful attack can cripple essential supply chains, and the other one is demonstrating how robust defense can prevent massive disruptions.
I think it's scary, right? The first one, it makes you think. I mean, you hear about all the time how fragile some of our other critical infrastructure can be around our country. Like you talk about water supply, you talk about other things that we rely on, right? Not just grocery stores and food, but even stuff that obviously we rely on here at home. So it really, really just highlights how fragile these things can be, and hopefully, the more other natural foods type companies hear about these, the more that they are being more proactive about them and looking into how to make sure that attacks at this size can never happen. So maybe hopefully they reached out to Cloudflare afterwards, or some other some other provider there to help them out next time.
Right.
I thought the second one was rather cool on how it was able to prevent the attack, and I would like to learn a little more on, what were the measures taken, what were the kind of policies set, and with the multi-vector angle, how did Cloudflare combat it? That's where I would lean on.
Yeah, I think the details of that defense are things that a lot of folks in our space could really learn from along the way. So I'll echo what all three of you said, which is the scale of these attacks and the impact just never ceases to amaze me. Also, same as it ever was. Some of us are old enough to remember the original internet worm. Like these things happen. It's the same, but it's different. So you have to continually try to protect yourself. And to that point, and something that Brandon said, some executives have started to say, well, that's why we have insurance. We have cyber attack insurance. We have cybersecurity insurance. So we really don't have to worry about our defenses because insurance is going to cover it. And I think that both of these are great examples of why that insurance is not going to cover you and will not protect you and is not the correct defense or even correct mindset. That saying, well, stuff's going to happen. Just got to suck it up. Cost of doing business. Like, what was it? $30 billion, $31 billion ARR. And this disruption, was a huge chunk of that. Like, there's just no insurance that's going to say, oh, sure, we'll just give you some money for not being prepared. Awesome. And I also think that these cybersecurity insurance companies are also saying, it's fine, we'll insure you, but let's see your audit. Let's see your preparedness, because, again, our regular insurance company asks us, were you wearing a seatbelt? Did you have, do you have protections in place? Same thing here. So, all right. Well, that was a good news roundup. Once again, I appreciate everyone carving out time out of their actual workday to do this fun stuff. Kelly, Payal, Brandon, thank you so much.
Thank
you,
you. This
everyone.
is
Thank you, Leon.
I'd like to take just another minute to thank my co-hosts as well as Catchpoint for giving us space to do fun things like this show. I also want to thank the news cycle itself for providing a never-ending source of education, intrigue, amusement, and horror. But most of all, I'd like to thank everyone watching or listening. Here at Catchpoint, we recognize there's an almost infinite amount of content that you can consume, and we really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to listen to us. Thank you again. For Catchpoint News Catchup, I'm Leon Adato.